To start off, before you guys start hearing words like BLM and OHV and you like fall asleep, like federal funding for this stuff, I want to hear how many of you guys ride OHVs. This includes like motorcycles, ATVs, snowmobiles, all that sort of stuff. Go there. So, like a third, half. All right. Thoughts on it? Where do you guys go?
Down my ranch and up in Wyoming for snowmobiling.
Hicksville.
Cabin here.
Dunes.
All right. Yeah, dunes. BLM. So these places that you go, do you ever want like more places to ride, better places to ride, anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all BLM funding. Would they contribute more to that? That's their job because they're the ones that provide these services. One of the main providers of these services. There are several, but they're one of the big providers, so I focused on them for this. All right. So that leads to the question: should the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, provide more funding for OHV recreation? So several reasons why they should. So they should uphold the recreational opportunity they've had for many years now. They've provided it for years and years, and there's no reason why they should stop. More money could possibly bring in a safer environment for people that are riding. So when you go out there, you're not just going to be like crashing into other riders, crashing into who knows what out there. And then it could help protect the environment. There's a lot of damage that's caused by people that go out and they do this and they don't do it correctly. And then there's a lot of people that would say that they shouldn't provide more funding, and that be that grants already provided for the funding, so the BLM doesn't need to take it out of their own budget. And also the BLM already has adequate amounts of OHV recreation provided. And then there are other things that the BLM should spend their more money on. So, like hiking and all that, like other recreation. We'll go to that later a little bit more. So pros, reasons why they should provide more funding. So the BLM should uphold recreation. So what we see over the trend over the last several years is that the number of OHV users continues to increase. In fact, over like the last 25 years, I think it's doubled. So we got a graph there, so I'll show you anyways. So the idea is that if you have more people, then you're going to need more funding. Because these people that are out there, they're going to need more land to ride on, so that's going to be more funding for that, and there's going to need to be more funding for management of that land because the land doesn't take care of itself. All right, now the idea is that also safety, second point. So if you're trying to be safe out there, then there's what we see another trend over the last several years is there's more riders, but at the same time, there's less space. Space continues to shrink. Because the BLM is decreasing that land. So if space shrinks and riders go up, that means the density of people in these areas goes up. That means that the frequency at which you're encountering other people increases. So when that frequency increases, then there's going to be more collisions because you're going to come around a corner and all of a sudden, well, there's like 10 times more people than you're used to seeing, and you're already like hauling around the corner. So more funding would help to promote safety because they could increase area or at least help to manage like traffic control to some extent. All right, and then protecting the environment. So I read a study, really long study. It's like 200 pages. I didn't read the entire thing, but I read what I needed. So in the study, it showed that when people ride these OHVs all over the ground, it starts to mess it up, tears up soil composition, removes plant life, and then it leads to erosion and creates cool things like that, except for it's not actually cool because it's not the natural environment, and a lot of people get really upset about that. All right, so let's go into some negatives for why the BLM shouldn't provide more funding. So grants, let's watch this video here.
Act it out for us.
Yeah, I'll look it up on YouTube, but for sake of time, I think that we'll skip it. So the idea is that in this video, it presents forth this idea. It talks about the Fort Sage Recreation Area. So Fort Sage Recreation Area, they talk about in the video, is provided mostly by grants to the BLM from the government. So and in these grants, they pay for really nice things like camping spots, fire pits, toilet areas. So everything's really provided out nicely, and it's the idea that this really nice recreation area is created, and the BLM didn't necessarily have to take all that money out of their own pocket to pay for it. I wish you guys could see this video. It shows like a really cool recreation area, but sorry about that. My apologies. Recreational opportunity provided is sufficient. So the BLM, they've had like thousands and thousands of acres set up for years and years. Even though they're decreasing, it's not necessarily the important acres that people ride on. That's more of like free range stuff. So when they start taking away these acres, there's still plenty of areas that are provided for people to ride, and the BLM is not the only provider of OHV recreational use. Besides the recreational areas that are specifically for OHV use, there's countless OHV trails that aren't necessarily categorized under any sort of BLM thing. They run throughout the state or states, and they don't need to. There's plenty of those for people to ride on, so they don't need any sort of extra provided by the BLM. So, and on to the third point of why they should not. So the BLM, they're investing a lot of money right now, but there was also another study done by Eco Northwest. So when they did this study, they found that the economic output of non-quiet recreation, that stuff like hiking, camping, all that sort of stuff, as compared to yeah, my bad. Okay, you're right. Thank you. So quiet recreation, and then non-quiet, which would be like OHV use. That stuff makes less money than the quiet recreation, which would be like hiking, camping. So they should invest more money into that if they want to get the highest economic output for themselves. All right. So that leads us back to our main question. After seeing these points, should the BLM increase funding or not? I say that they should not increase funding for the reason that there's enough money provided already through grants and everything. And it's like you just don't need more money from their own pocketbook when they have money that they can get from the government specifically for this. And then the BLM ought to spend their money on more pressing matters. So the BLM, a very small portion of their budget is actually recreation. So if they would spend their money on other things and let somebody else focus on recreation, or to be able to only use grants for recreation, then they could use their money a lot more efficiently. And that should be it. Any questions? All right, Max and Jackson.
How many grants have there been, and how much were there for?
So the idea is that each state applies for their own grants, and depending on state, I know that California applies for dozens upon dozens of grants, and they get hundreds of thousands of dollars worth, whereas Utah doesn't apply for so many grants, and they don't get that much money, but they should, which is one of my main points, is that they should apply for more grants.
This is a little bit off of what your research topic is, but do you prefer a 2-stroke or 4-stroke?
Oh, 4-stroke for sure. Next.
Could we expect to see a rise in the areas for OHV, or since they think they have enough funding that it would decrease for more quiet recreation?
What do you mean areas?
So you know how you like said these areas are designed for like the dunes and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and you said that. Could you expect to see a rise in like more areas like that, or are they gonna shift?
If there was more funding, we could see a higher rise. So that's part of the argument, is that people want more of these areas. So if you got more grants, then you could have those areas. So there is a website that you go to, and it's actually a federal grant application process. That's the same website that most businesses would use.
Where would you like to see the money go?
Where would I like to see the money go? Personally, I think that it should be divided up into several of the areas that I mentioned in my pro argument. Is that if it was divided up to improve the recreational opportunity, to improve safety, and to improve protection for the environment.
Cool. Thank you, Brandon.